Commander Sarah Chun had been dead for 3 years, her body lost in the void between galaxies after a catastrophic engine failure during humanity's first deep space exploration mission. Earth mourned her as a hero, built monuments in her honor, and named schools after her sacrifice. Children learned about her courage in textbooks, and her final transmission became the most replayed recording in human history. Tell them we tried. Tell them humanity reached for the stars. But Sarah Chin wasn't dead. She was very much alive, sitting in an alien medical facility on the edge of known space, her human physiology being studied by beings who had never encountered her species before. The universe, it turned out, was far more crowded than humanity had ever imagined, and Sarah Chun was about to become the bridge between two worlds, whether she wanted to or not. The beings who had rescued her from the wreckage of her ship called themselves the Zephyrians, and they had been watching humanity for decades, waiting to see if this young species would prove worthy of contact. Sarah's survival and her actions in the coming days would determine not just her own fate, but the future of every human being back on Earth. What the Zephyrians didn't expect was that they had rescued someone who embodied everything that made humanity dangerous, beautiful, and utterly unpredictable. Sarah Chun was about to show them why humans had clawed their way to the top of their world's food chain, and why underestimating the human spirit was the last mistake any species should make. The galaxy was about to learn what human really meant. The first thing Sarah Chin noticed when consciousness returned was the absence of pain. After 3 years of waking up to the dull ache in her left shoulder where shrapnel from the engine explosion had embedded itself, the sudden relief felt wrong somehow. She kept her eyes closed and took inventory of her body the way her military training had taught her. Fingers, toes, limbs, everything responded normally. Too normally. The second thing she noticed was the smell. Not the recycled air of her damaged ship with its undertones of ozone and metal fatigue, but something organic and clean, like morning rain on fresh earth. It was pleasant, but entirely alien to someone who had spent the last 3 years breathing filtered atmosphere in a dying spacecraft. The third thing was the humming. Low, melodic, and definitely not mechanical. Someone was singing. Sarah's eyes snapped open to reveal a ceiling that seemed to be made of living crystal, its surface shifting between deep blues and purples and patterns that suggested breathing. She was lying on something that felt like the most comfortable bed she had ever experienced, despite appearing to be carved from the same crystal-like material as the ceiling. "You are awake." The voice came from her left, speaking English with an accent she couldn't place. "This is encouraging. Dr. Vexhai was not certain your neural patterns would stabilize after the reconstruction." Sarah turned her head slowly, military caution warring with curiosity. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. The being standing beside her bed was humanoid in the most basic sense. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But that's where the similarities ended. Her skin had a subtle iridescent quality that reminded Sarah of soap bubbles, shifting between pale gold and soft silver as she moved. Her hair, if it could be called that, appeared to be made of the same crystal material as the room, hanging in delicate strands that chimed softly when she moved her head. But it was her eyes that held Sarah's attention, large, expressive, and a shade of violet that seemed to contain entire galaxies. "My name is Lyra," the being continued, apparently unbothered by Sarah's staring. "I am what you would call a physician, though our medical practices differ significantly from what your species has developed." Sarah's mouth felt dry. "My species. You know about humans." Lyra's expression shifted into what might have been a smile, though her facial structure made it difficult to interpret. "We have been observing your people for approximately 67 of your years. You are quite fascinating. Your species shows remarkable adaptability and an almost irrational optimism in the face of impossible odds." Observing. Sarah's training kicked in, pushing through the surreal nature of the situation. "You've been watching us without making contact. Contact protocols exist for good reasons, Sarah Chun." Lyra moved to what appeared to be a control panel that materialized from the wall at her touch. "Your species is young, aggressive, and has shown a disturbing tendency toward violence when faced with the unknown. The Galactic Council has strict guidelines about first contact with developing civilizations. Sarah struggled to sit up, surprised when the bed automatically adjusted to support her. Galactic Council? A governing body representing approximately 47 sentient species in this region of space. Earth has been under observation status, pending a determination of humanity's readiness for broader galactic contact. Lyra's fingers danced over symbols that appeared and disappeared on the control panel. Your survival and rescue have created something of a diplomatic situation. I've been missing for 3 years. Sarah's voice was steady, but inside she was reeling. 3 years of drifting through space, rationing supplies, jerry-rigging systems to keep herself alive, and all the while she had been under observation by alien civilizations. How long have I been here? Approximately 14 standard days. Your injuries were extensive. Dr. Vexhai had to rebuild significant portions of your skeletal structure and replace several organs that had been damaged beyond your body's ability to repair them. Sarah looked down at herself, noticing for the first time that she was wearing a garment that seemed to be made of liquid light, shifting and flowing like water, but feeling like silk against her skin. You rebuilt my organs? With your permission, of course. You were conscious for the initial consultation, though you may not remember. Human consciousness appears to fragment under extreme stress in ways we had not anticipated. Memory fragments surfaced. Pain, a gentle voice asking for consent, her own voice saying yes to whatever would keep her alive. How is this possible? Your technology is approximately 3,700 years more advanced than your current level, according to our xenoarchaeologists' estimates. Lyra turned from the control panel, her crystal hair chiming softly. But technological advancement is not the primary concern of the Council. It is your species' behavioral patterns that worry them. Sarah swung her legs over the side of the bed, pleased to find that her body responded normally despite whatever modifications had been made. What behavioral patterns? Aggression toward the unknown. Territorial expansion despite resource scarcity. The tendency to create weapons from any new technology. The complete inability to achieve planetary unity despite obvious benefits. Lyra's violet eyes seemed to study Sarah with the intensity of a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. And, yet, you also demonstrate unprecedented acts of individual sacrifice for the collective good. Your own mission is evidence of this paradox. My mission was exploration, not sacrifice. Your mission was launched knowing that current technology could not guarantee your safe return. You volunteered for what amounted to a suicide mission because your species values knowledge and exploration above individual survival. This is the paradox that has the Council intrigued. Sarah stood, testing her balance. Everything felt normal, maybe even better than normal. Her shoulder, which had ached for 3 years, felt perfect. What happens now? That depends largely on you. Lyra gestured toward what Sarah assumed was a window, though it showed a view of space unlike anything she had ever seen. Instead of black emptiness dotted with stars, space here seemed alive with color, streams of light flowing between celestial bodies like cosmic rivers. Your rescue has accelerated the timeline for a decision regarding Earth's contact status. Because I'm here. Because you survived 3 years in a damaged spacecraft using nothing but determination and creativity. Because you maintained your sanity in complete isolation. Because when our rescue ship found you, you were still attempting to repair systems that had been beyond hope for over a year. Lyra's voice carried a note of something that might have been admiration. You have become an unwitting representative of your species, and your actions here will influence the Council's decision. Sarah moved to the window, staring out at the impossible beauty of active space. In the distance, she could see structures that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, space stations or ships that looked like cities floating among the stars. What kind of decision? Whether humanity is ready for contact, whether you should be allowed to continue developing independently, or whether you represent a threat that must be contained. The casual way Lyra said contained sent a chill down Sarah's spine. Contained how? The Council has several options. Limited contact with heavy restrictions. Technological assistance with cultural oversight. Relocation to a designated system. Lyra paused, her crystal hair catching the light from the cosmic streams outside. Or isolation. Isolation. A quantum barrier around your solar system. No one gets in or out until your species either achieves sufficient development to break through on your own or destroys itself. The barrier would be permanent by human standards. Sarah felt her jaw clench. You're talking about quarantining an entire species. It has been done before with civilizations that showed aggressive tendencies but lacked the wisdom to control them. Usually, it is considered a kindness, allowing a species to develop or fail on its own rather than being eliminated as a threat. Eliminated. Sarah turned from the window to face Lyra directly. You're saying the Council might decide to destroy humanity. It is an option, though rarely used. Most Council species prefer to avoid direct extermination when possible. Lyra's voice remained maddeningly calm. Your species file contains extensive documentation of your capacity for both creation and destruction. The Council finds the inconsistency troubling. Sarah felt anger building in her chest, but forced herself to remain calm. Getting emotional wouldn't help humanity's case. What inconsistency? You create beautiful art, music, and literature while simultaneously developing increasingly efficient methods of warfare. You show incredible compassion for individuals while maintaining economic systems that allow mass suffering. You risk everything to save a single life while engaging in activities that threaten your entire planet's biosphere. Lyra's head tilted in what might have been confusion. Your species appears to be simultaneously evolving toward greatness and destroying itself. The Council cannot predict which tendency will ultimately dominate. And my being here changes that how. Because you represent both tendencies in a single individual. You volunteered for a mission that benefited all humanity while carrying weapons and military protocols just in case. You spent 3 years alone in space maintaining hope while also preparing for death. You are a contradiction that the Council must understand before making their decision. Sarah absorbed this information, her mind racing through implications. Everything humanity had worked toward, every achievement and dream, hung in the balance of some alien committee's decision. And, somehow, she had become the deciding factor. How long do I have? The Council convenes in 7 standard days. Your testimony will be heard, and a decision will be made. 7 days to save humanity. Sarah had faced worse odds, though not by much. I suppose I should prepare my testimony then. That would be advisable. Though I should warn you that several Council members have already formed opinions about human nature based on your species' historical records. Convincing them to change their minds will require more than words. Sarah looked out at the cosmic rivers flowing between stars, each stream representing forces and technologies beyond human comprehension. Somewhere among those lights was Earth, where 7 billion people continued their lives unaware that their future hung in the balance. She thought about her crew, the people who had trained with her, supported her mission, and mourned her death. She thought about the children learning about her sacrifice in school, and the scientists analyzing the data her mission was supposed to provide. She thought about humanity's dreams of reaching the stars, and how those dreams might end before they truly began. Tell me about the Council members, Sarah said finally. If I'm going to convince them, I need to understand who I'm talking to. Lyra's expression shifted in what Sarah was beginning to recognize as surprise. You still intend to try? Most species representatives become overwhelmed by the scope of what they face. Sarah turned from the window and met Lyra's violet gaze directly. You said it yourself. Humans are stubborn. We don't give up easily, especially when everything we care about is at stake. For the first time since awakening, Sarah saw something that looked unmistakably like a smile cross Lyra's features. Perhaps that is exactly what the Council needs to understand about your species. As Lyra began explaining the complex political structure of the Galactic Council, Sarah felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had been trained as an explorer and scientist, not a diplomat or lawyer, but sometimes the universe doesn't give you a choice about the roles you have to play. Somewhere out in that beautiful, dangerous cosmos, Earth waited for news that would never come. Unless Sarah could find a way to convince a group of alien beings that humanity deserved a chance to prove itself among the stars. She had 7 days to save her entire species. The challenge was impossible, the odds stacked against her, and the consequences of failure unthinkable. Sarah Chun smiled grimly. It was exactly the kind of situation that brought out the best in humanity. The Galactic Council chamber was not what Sarah had expected. Instead of some grand hall with formal seating, she found herself standing in the center of what appeared to be a vast sphere made of the same living crystal that comprised Lyra's medical facility. The 47 council members were positioned around her at various points on the sphere's inner surface, each in an environment suited to their species' needs. Sarah could see beings that looked like walking geometric patterns, others that seemed to be made entirely of liquid metal, and several that defied her ability to process their forms entirely. Some existed in gas-filled chambers. Others appeared to be pure energy contained within force fields. The diversity was overwhelming, and Sarah felt acutely aware of how young and small humanity must seem to these ancient civilizations. Representative Sarah Chun of the human species. A voice resonated through the chamber without seeming to come from any particular direction. You stand before the Galactic Council to provide testimony regarding your species' readiness for contact with the greater galactic community. Sarah had spent the past week preparing for this moment, studying council procedures and learning about each species represented. Lyra had been an invaluable guide, though she had warned Sarah that her own people, the Zephyrians, would need to maintain strict neutrality during the proceedings. I thank the council for this opportunity, Sarah began, projecting her voice clearly. Though I should point out that I never asked to be humanity's representative. I'm just an astronaut who got lost and was fortunate enough to be rescued by the Zephyrians. A ripple of what might have been amusement moved through some of the council members. Others remained motionless, their alien forms giving no indication of their thoughts. Modesty is irrelevant, came a new voice, this one carrying undertones that seemed to vibrate in Sarah's bones. She identified the speaker as one of the geometric beings, its crystalline form shifting through complex patterns as it spoke. Your individual qualifications are less important than what you represent. We have observed your species for decades. We know what you are capable of. With respect, Counselor, Sarah replied, using the formal address she had learned. I don't think you do. Yes, you've been watching us, but observation from a distance can only tell you so much. You see the big picture, the historical patterns, the statistics. But you don't see what drives us, what makes us human at the individual level. We have extensive data on human behavior patterns, interjected another voice. This one came from what appeared to be a cloud of luminous gas contained within a spherical chamber. Your species demonstrates consistent aggression toward anything perceived as different or threatening. Your historical records show continuous warfare, even among your own kind. You're not wrong, Sarah admitted. Humans do have a capacity for violence. But you're only looking at part of the picture. Yes, we fight. We fight against threats, against oppression, against impossible odds. But we also fight for each other. Sarah began to walk slowly around the chamber's floor, making eye contact with as many council members as possible. 3 years ago, I volunteered for a mission that everyone knew was essentially a one-way trip. I wasn't forced to go. I chose to go because my species has dreams that are bigger than our individual lives. We wanted to know what was out here, even if it meant some of us wouldn't make it back. Reckless expansion is not admirable, came a voice like grinding stone. Many species have destroyed themselves through uncontrolled exploration and resource exploitation. But we didn't destroy ourselves getting to space, Sarah countered. We almost did, yes. We came close to nuclear war, environmental collapse, resource depletion. But we didn't do it. We pulled back from the brink because we learned to think beyond immediate gain. Temporarily, said the geometric being. Your species still maintains nuclear weapons, still engages in territorial conflicts, still threatens your planetary ecosystem. You're absolutely right, Sarah said, surprising several council members with her agreement. We're not perfect. We're young, we're still learning, and yes, we still make mistakes. But that's exactly why we need contact with the galactic community, not isolation from it. She stopped walking and turned to address the entire council. Every species in this chamber went through a similar phase. The Altarian Empire fought 3 civil wars before achieving unity. The Nexus Collective destroyed their first home planet and had to rebuild their civilization from refugee fleets. The Xerian transformation was facilitated by direct intervention from energy-based mentors. Almost every species here received some form of assistance during their difficult transition periods. Sarah could see she had struck a nerve. Several council members were shifting in their environmental chambers, communicating with each other in frequencies and methods beyond human perception. You're asking humanity to bootstrap itself into galactic readiness with no assistance whatsoever, Sarah continued. That's not how any of your species did it. So why are you expecting us to? Because, said a new voice, deep and resonant, your species has demonstrated capabilities that concern us. Sarah turned toward the speaker and felt her breath catch. The being addressing her appeared to be made of living shadow, its form constantly shifting and indefinite except for 2 points of brilliant light that might have been eyes. You have achieved nuclear capability, spaceflight, global communication, and artificial intelligence in less than a century of technological development, the shadow being continued. This rate of advancement is unprecedented in our records. That should be encouraging, Sarah said. It is terrifying, came the immediate response. Most species take millennia to achieve what you have accomplished in decades. Such rapid development often leads to catastrophic instability. Sarah felt pieces clicking into place in her mind. You're not just concerned about our aggression. You're afraid we're developing too fast to control. The chamber's silence stretched for several seconds before the geometric being responded. Your species represents an unknown variable. We cannot predict your development trajectory, which makes you a potential threat to galactic stability. So you're considering containing or destroying us because we're successful? Because you are unpredictable, corrected the shadow being. And because your survival instincts appear to be far stronger than most species. Sarah felt anger flare in her chest, but forced herself to remain calm. Let me make sure I understand this correctly. You've been watching us for 67 years. In that time, you've seen us go from barely achieving flight to putting people in space, from mechanical computers to artificial intelligence, from radio communication to global internet networks. Instead of being impressed by our adaptability and drive, you're concerned because we're learning too quickly. Rapid advancement without corresponding wisdom development has led to the extinction of 17 species in recorded council history, stated the geometric being flatly. And how many species have been destroyed or contained by council intervention? Sarah asked. The question sent a ripple of tension through the chamber. Several council members began communicating in rapid bursts of energy, color, and sound that Sarah couldn't interpret. That information is classified, came the eventual response from the shadow being. I bet it is, Sarah said grimly, because I suspect that number is higher than 17. Your implications are inappropriate, warned the voice like grinding stone. My implications are necessary, Sarah shot back, her military training taking over. You're sitting here debating whether to imprison or destroy my entire species based on fear and statistical projections, not actual evidence of wrongdoing. You talk about wisdom development, but where's the wisdom in eliminating potential allies because they might eventually become threats? Sarah began walking again, this time with purpose and aggression in her movements. You know what I think? I think some of you are afraid of humanity not because we're too aggressive or too stupid, but because we're too successful. We're achieving in decades what took you millennia, and that makes you uncomfortable. You overstep yourself, human, came a voice like crystalline bells, though the tone was sharp and warning. Do I? Sarah stopped and planted her feet, looking directly at the source of the voice. I'm standing here as the sole representative of my species, facing judgment from beings who have never met another human, never visited our world, never tried to understand us beyond distant observation. You're making decisions about billions of lives based on incomplete information and fear. The shadow being's form seemed to grow larger. You dare question the council's wisdom? I question your methodology, Sarah replied firmly. And I question your motivations. The chamber erupted in alien communication, lights flashing, energy patterns swirling, sounds ranging from subsonic rumbles to frequencies that made Sarah's teeth ache. She stood in the center of it all, maintaining her position while her heart hammered against her ribs. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, the communication died down. The luminous gas being spoke first. You show significant courage, confronting the assembled council in this manner. Courage or stupidity, added the geometric being. The distinction may be academic. Sarah took a deep breath. If standing up for my species is stupid, then I'll accept that label. But I won't stand here quietly while you decide humanity's fate based on fear and prejudice. Prejudice. The shadow being's voice carried dangerous undertones. Yes, prejudice. You've decided we're too aggressive, too fast-developing, too unpredictable to be trusted. But you haven't given us a chance to prove otherwise. You're judging us based on what we might become, not what we are. Sarah looked around the chamber, meeting as many alien gazes as she could. I've been lost in space for 3 years. In that time, I survived on failing systems, limited supplies, and determination. I could have given up dozens of times. A less stubborn species might have. But I kept trying to fix things, kept trying to get home, kept believing that somehow I'd make it back to the people I cared about. She paused, letting that sink in. That's what humans do. We don't give up. We don't accept defeat. We keep trying to solve problems and help each other, even when the odds are impossible. Yes, that sometimes leads to conflict. But, more often, it leads to breakthroughs that benefit everyone. Pretty words, said the wind chime voice. But words are insufficient proof of intent. Then, what kind of proof would satisfy you? Sarah asked. What would humanity need to do to earn your trust instead of your fear? The question seemed to catch several council members off guard. There was another round of rapid alien communication before the shadow being responded. The council has established protocols for species advancement, compliance with galactic law, demonstration of internal stability, proof of non-aggressive intent toward other species. Protocols established by species who all received help during their own advancement phases, Sarah pointed out. You're asking us to meet standards that none of you achieved independently. The standards exist for the protection of all, stated the geometric being. The standards exist to maintain the status quo, Sarah countered. To keep new species from disrupting the comfortable balance you've established. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different, thoughtful rather than hostile. Finally, a new voice spoke, one that hadn't participated in the discussion before. It sounded like ocean waves mixed with distant thunder. What would you propose instead, human? Sarah felt her pulse quicken. This might be her only chance. Give us a chance to prove ourselves through action, not just words. Send representatives to Earth. Let us show you who we really are, not just the historical data you've compiled. Judge us based on interaction and collaboration, not fear and statistics. Unacceptable risk, immediately responded several voices. Unacceptable to whom? Sarah challenged. You've all survived first contact with other species. Why is humanity different? Because, said the shadow being slowly, none of us achieved what you have achieved in so short a time. None of us survived the complete isolation you survived. None of us demonstrated the individual resilience and determination that you have shown. Sarah stared at the shifting darkness of the shadow being, trying to understand what it was really saying. You're afraid of us because we're strong? We are cautious of you because you represent something unprecedented in our experience. The pieces clicked into place in Sarah's mind, and she understood. The council wasn't just afraid of human aggression or rapid development. They were afraid of human potential, afraid of what humanity might become if given the chance to develop freely. You're not afraid we'll destroy ourselves, Sarah said quietly. You're afraid we'll surpass you. The admission hung in the chamber like a physical weight, and Sarah knew she had found the real heart of the matter. The decision about humanity's future wasn't about protecting the galaxy from a dangerous species. It was about protecting the existing power structure from a potentially superior competitor. The game had just changed completely, and Sarah was no longer sure she was playing for humanity's acceptance. She might be playing for humanity's survival against beings who saw them as a threat to their cosmic hegemony. The real test was about to begin. The silence following Sarah's accusation stretched until it became uncomfortable even by human standards. She could feel the weight of dozens of alien intelligences processing her words, and she wasn't sure if she had just saved humanity or doomed it. When the shadow being finally spoke, its voice carried a different quality, less threatening, more contemplative. You believe the council fears human superiority? I believe the Council fears change, Sarah replied carefully. I've studied your histories. The current power structure has been stable for over 3,000 years. The same species who founded the Council still dominate it. The same civilizations who achieved early technological advancement still control the most resources and territories. Sarah began walking again, but this time her movements were measured and deliberate. New species are brought into the galactic community under strict guidelines, given limited territories, restricted technologies, and carefully monitored development paths. They're never allowed to compete with the established powers. Stability is essential for galactic peace, stated the geometric being, but its patterns seemed less rigid than before. Stability can also lead to stagnation, Sarah countered. When was the last time the Council made a major breakthrough in any field? When did any member species achieve a significant advancement that benefited the entire galaxy? The question prompted another round of alien communication, though this one seemed more subdued than the previous exchanges. Our civilizations have achieved near-optimal states, came a voice like singing crystals. Further advancement is unnecessary. Near-optimal according to whom? Sarah asked. Have you solved death? Eliminated suffering? Achieved true understanding of the universe? Or have you just reached a comfortable level of control that you don't want to risk losing? Sarah stopped walking and turned to address the entire Council directly. I've been here for a week, and I've learned something interesting about each of your species. Every one of you stopped major innovation shortly after joining the Council. Your technological development plateaued, your cultural evolution slowed, your expansion into new territories ceased. You traded growth for security. An acceptable exchange, said the wind chime voice, though it sounded less certain than before. For you, maybe. But what about the species who never get the chance to make that choice? What about the civilizations that could surpass your achievements if given the opportunity? The luminous gas being's form shifted, becoming brighter. You suggest the Council deliberately suppresses promising species? I suggest the Council has created a system that maintains the status quo by preventing any new species from becoming truly competitive with the founding members. Sarah's voice remained steady despite the magnitude of her accusation. How many species have been contained or eliminated not because they were genuinely dangerous, but because they showed potential to challenge existing power structures? These are serious allegations, rumbled the voice like grinding stone. They're serious questions, Sarah replied. And the fact that you're not answering them is telling. The shadow being's form seemed to pulse with agitation. You assume malicious intent where none exists. The Council's protocols exist to prevent catastrophic conflicts between species. Do they? Or do they exist to prevent catastrophic competition? Sarah looked directly at the shadow being. You said yourself that humanity's development rate is unprecedented. We achieved in decades what took your species millennia. What if we continued that development curve? Where would we be in 100 years? 1,000? Theoretical, said the geometric being, but its patterns had shifted to more defensive configurations. Not theoretical, inevitable, unless you stop us. Sarah felt pieces continuing to click into place. That's what this is really about. You're not afraid we'll destroy ourselves or become aggressive toward other species. You're afraid we'll outgrow the need for the Council entirely. The chamber fell silent again, but Sarah could sense intense communication happening beyond human perception. Energy patterns flickered around the sphere, lights pulsed in complex sequences, and several of the environmental chambers showed signs of agitation. After several minutes, a new voice joined the discussion, one that carried such age and authority that Sarah instinctively straightened. Human, you demonstrate remarkable perception for such a young species. Sarah turned toward the source of the voice, but couldn't identify its origin. The speaker seemed to exist everywhere and nowhere within the chamber. Are you confirming my suspicions? I am acknowledging that you have identified concerns that some Council members harbor. The ancient voice carried undertones of vast weariness. The question remains, what do you propose we do about it? Sarah felt her heart rate spike. This was the moment everything had been building toward, not just her testimony, but possibly the entire history of human observation by the Council. I propose you do what none of you seem willing to consider. Treat humanity as equals instead of potential threats. Equality must be earned, stated the shadow being. By whose standards? Sarah shot back. Your standards? The same standards that no current council member achieved independently? The same standards that conveniently ensure no new species can challenge your authority? Sarah began walking again. But this time she wasn't pacing. She was advancing on the council members, her body language shifting from defensive to aggressive. Here's what I think should happen. Give humanity access to galactic technology and knowledge. Let us develop naturally instead of trying to constrain us. Judge us based on what we accomplish, not what you fear we might become. Unacceptable, came immediate responses from multiple sources. Why? Sarah demanded. Because you know we'll succeed? Because you know we'll prove that your carefully maintained power structure is obsolete. Because, said the ancient voice quietly, it has been tried before. The admission hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several council members stopped their communication entirely, and Sarah felt the political landscape shift around her. What do you mean, tried before? She asked carefully. The ancient voice sighed, a sound like stars dying. Approximately 800 of your years ago, a species called the Vanguards demonstrated development patterns similar to yours. Rapid technological advancement, strong survival instincts, innovative problem-solving capabilities. The council decided to offer them full partnership instead of gradual integration. Sarah waited, dreading what was coming next. Within 50 standard years, the Vanguards had surpassed the technological capabilities of most council members. Within 100 years, they controlled more territory than the founding species. Within 200 years, they had effectively disbanded the council and established their own hegemony over the galaxy. The chamber was absolutely silent now. Sarah could feel the weight of ancient regret and fear emanating from the assembled beings. What happened to them? She asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. They expanded beyond our galaxy, seeking new challenges and resources. The last communication from